So this is the code from the past week, right? Where you left off. Um, can you see my screen? I think so, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, nice. So let's see. Uh, yeah, so this is where we left off. So it was just creating an express route and then listening to the in the port, and then here's the route, right? And then if we call this route, which is called users, we just return an example. So okay, so what we're gonna start by doing today is like I'm gonna start with the first steps to turn this into a full stack project. So the first part is like it's probably to convert the code in like create some server and then client folders, so it becomes separate. And also we have to install the database stuff, right? So we need to install. What I like to use a lot is MySQL, which you guys can download here at. I have a link here on the browser. So okay, so this page here, if you go to this page, which is javatpoint.com, how to install MySQL, it has a brief tutorial here. So you can just download the installer here on the official website, which is this one. So you can just download the Windows installer. Since I'm working on Windows, right? There must be a similar thing. Okay, so if you're using on Mac, for example, you have to use a different program to install and also to check the database. I'll show you guys later how this works on Windows, and then I'll give a tip if you guys want to do it on Mac or Linux or something else. But okay, and then download here, and then you'll go through this stuff here. It's pretty straightforward. You just click next and everything, and then here you gotta select the full install because it's gonna install the MySQL Workbench, right? So the Workbench is the thing that you use to actually talk to the database, and there's like a beautiful interface that you can query your database and also insert and do all sorts of things, right? And then okay, so once you install, uh, yeah, you can just click next, and then it will ask you in the end to create a password. So yeah, basically next, 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 and at some point, yeah, okay. So it asks you to create the MySQL root password. So this is important. You should make a strong password here and save it somewhere. I just make like a random password here like this with some numbers. Is actually some password here with like some symbols and some numbers and some capital letters. And then okay, then you save this and then install, and then you should be good. So okay, so once you install this, you can move back to the code here. It will open for you this thing here, which is called the workbench. So it's MySQL Workbench, right? So you can open it. Just a second, there is loading. Okay, so here's the page of the workbench. If you're on Mac, you don't have a MySQL Workbench for Mac, so you have to use something called Sequelize. I'll just type in the chat here the name. Let's see. What's the chat? So for Mac, it's SQL8. There must be something similar for Linux, but I never used it for Linux actually. Only Windows and Mac. Okay, so here are your connections. So if you set up it sets up for you a root user with the password that you defined, right? So if you just click here and then type your password, it should log you in. So yeah, so now you're logged in here on the navigator page. You actually start on this page here, right? So okay, so moving on. So now I'll consider that you guys have MySQL installed, okay? As you should now. It's pretty easy. You shouldn't have a lot of problems with that. And then okay, so now what you can do is moving on from that point. So you can install TypeScript. Um, so yeah, so I created here the client and server roots, right? So I'll not be working on the client today since I won't have time probably. I also didn't prepare for the client, only for the server, but that should be enough for today class. So let's see. So I have the server here, and then if I just copy everything here, so the index, I don't usually keep this package.lock JSON. Don't like keeping it in my products because throw some bugs sometimes. So I just delete it. Yeah. So I just copy here the index and the package.json here. So okay. So now it's inside the server, right? So I can just cd to that folder, and then yarn. I'm not sure if I mentioned yarn before. So yarn is like, so the when you install Node.js, the default thing that comes is npm. So you do npm install and some package name. But then once you download the npm, you can use yarn because it's better, it's faster. There's some problems that only happen in npm that don't happen in yarn because they solved it. So yarn is better. So once you download the install Node.js, you should always do like this npm install. I think it's dash global or just dash g, I think, and then yarn. So then you can use the yarn command, which is better than npm in my opinion. So yeah, so now that you have yarn, you can just install the stuff here from the. I don't think I have express there in the package JSON. So I'll just start by adding express. So yarn add express. So let's see. Yeah, so it's adding the node modules there. Okay, so you should also install TypeScript since we're gonna be using TypeScript on this project. So to install TypeScript, you can do or either yarn add or npm install -g TypeScript. So that should install TypeScript. I already have it installed, so I won't install again. But once you finish this command, you can just run to see if it works. So tsc-v. So it says version 5.0.3, right? So this proves that it installed. So anything above version 1.6, you can run this command here, which is tsc-int. So this thing here is gonna create a file for you inside the server folder, which is called tsconfig, right? So tsconfig is basically the file that you need to have, so you can have TypeScript configured in your project, which is always a good idea because then you have types, right? So it takes care of a lot of problems if you use TypeScript from the start, especially when doing full stack, because then if you don't know the type, you can have so many weird errors. So ends up being a bad idea. So I always work with TypeScript. So let's see. What I need to do here to configure is just, I think it's the root dir. So if I just look at this file and look for the root dir, so this is the file that you look for your TypeScript files. I think you can just call this src. So you can just put here you can create inside here src folder, right? And then you move all your stuff inside the, yeah, I think just the code, right? So the index.js, you move inside the src folder, and then the roots, I also forgot to put the roots inside the server, but yeah, and then you move the roots here to the, and then yes, so because you said that everything inside src is your root directory, it will look for TypeScript files. So at this point you should rename your files to, instead of JS, to TS, right? Because it will now know that those TS files need to be compiled. So let's see if it seems throwing a bit of an error here. You gotta go through the errors one by one. So like, okay, so another thing here that you need to do is like output. So specify output folder, right? So I think it's out there. Okay, so out there, you just select a folder to keep all your build files. So this could be called build. Simple enough, right? And then let's see. I need to get rid of these errors now. So okay, so it's complaining here that you can't have implicit any. So implicit any is like if you don't say what type something is, so it's by default is any, right? So this is a bad idea when you're developing, because it's the whole point of TypeScript is that you know what type everything is. So if you just say okay, it can be any type, so it doesn't make sense, right? So you are not using TypeScript actually. Oh, someone just okay, I think I'm still going, right? I'm still online. I'll just see here if someone just joined, but I think not. Okay, so let's just continue. Yeah, so as I was saying, so you can to make things easier when you're installing TypeScript, you can just go here to the file and check for implicit any, and you can just set it to false, so then it allows any for a while. So this is better to just make sure that your code is working, but after you know it's working, you should type everything and set it back to true. Okay, so this should get rid of these errors here, right, on the rec and res. And then let's see, module.exports. Yeah, it seems to want me to install this thing here. I did not have this before, but I'll just go along and let's see if it works. And what else? Require, yeah, it's not finding the types for Node.js. And that I think this should be fixed if I just run this. Okay, so it fixed that. So what problem is left? Let me see. Cannot redeclare block scope variable express. So yeah, so because this file is using the other one, it has a const declare a variable called express in the same scope. So it can't have that, so I'll probably just rename it to something else for now. And then I'll just call the exp.router. Okay. So now I think the project is set up with TypeScripts. So now what you can do is come here to the scripts and then create a few scripts. For example, build. So to build, if you're inside the server folder, you just need to run tsc. Okay. And then if you want to run the project, so that would be start, right? You can just run node and then what's the name again? Oh, actually, since you are on the root folder server, you should actually cd to your build folder, which is not built yet, but I'll build right after this. So and then node, what's the name of the file? Index. It will be index.js. And then I'll just type a comma here, and then let's see if it builds. Okay, so here we are, and then let's see if we can add like yarn build. Okay, so let's see if it builds. I hope so, but let's see. Okay, so it just built, and then here is build and everything, and then if I run yarn start, should also work now, right? Let's see. Yeah, server started on port 3000. So this is great because we are already using TypeScript. So I can make a little demonstration here how this will work. So very briefly, if we declare here somewhere a constant, right, with the name some number equals 12, you can type this out to be a number. So now the code knows that this should be a number, so it won't accept anything else, right? So if you try to put a string, it says string is not assignable to type number. And then yeah, and then also if you in some other place you try to call it like it's not the type that is. So for example, if for some reason I think that this variable, so this could be called variable, I don't know. I think that this variable is a string. I could want to do this with a method that from a string. So it will say, okay, split does not exist on type number. So that gets rid of a lot of problems, right? So then, okay, so then if this is a string, and then you can define it as a string, and then it will have the split. The splitting will work, right? So let's see, split 0, 12. I mean, argument of type number. It's weird because it's still thinking it's a oh, okay. Still, yeah. The separator is a string actually. So yeah. So the method. So let me see. Yeah, split on a comma. So for example, if I had this and then I will split on a comma, it works because it's a string, but not if it's a number, right? Then it just throws a lot of errors. Yeah. So this is TypeScript, and let me see what else. What else is there? Okay, so then what I'll do now is, okay, so I just installed Express, right? And then I just install TypeScript on the globally and the global scope with the -g, and then I just need to install now Sequelize, which is the thing that talks to the MySQL database, and then Sequelize TypeScript, which is very helpful to when you're working with TypeScript, right? So I can just do yarn add Sequelize. Oh, someone wants to join. Okay. Hey there. Close if. How are you doing? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I was just talking here. I'll just continue from where I left. I'm teaching building on from the last week, and I'm trying to add TypeScript and then MySQL database, and then yeah, I'll just continue. If you don't, if somehow you missed the first part, you can always check the video later, and then you just see everything. Okay, and then let's move on. So yeah, so as I was saying, uh, okay, let me just yeah. Uh, so okay, so if I just do yarn and sequelize, and then sequelize. Oh, sorry, I got wrong the command. So yarn add sequelize and then sequelize TypeScript, and then uh, yeah, it's installing the sequelize and then sequelize TypeScript. Okay. Then what I'll have to do after this is like create a models folder here. Models. Uh, so this folder is the one that's going to connect to the MySQL database. So I can have a file here, something like index.ts. So this is the file where I need to connect to the database. So to do that, I'll actually grab a snippet of a code here. There's quite a big code, so I won't be typing everything out. I'll just copy and explain, okay? And then let's see. Uh, so index.ts. Okay. So this is index.ts. I can get rid of this thing here since I'm not using. and then there's no db config, and then yeah, there should be Sequelize TypeScript. Yeah, it's still complaining about the types, which is a bit weird. Let me try to restart the TypeScript server. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if it fixed. Seems to have fixed. So okay. So if I'm going to configure this manually, I just type here some database, and then this can be just the user. If you just follow the instructions, the default instructions before for the MySQL installer, you can just type root here, and then at the password you can just type your password that you created. I'm not using this password for anything, so I'll just type it here. There's no problem if you guys see. And then okay, so the host, since I'm running on my machine, I'll just type localhost. If this is somewhere remote, if you just hosted this MySQL on your remote server, you just type the IP address for your server, right? Like 143 dot I don't know, something, you know. The But if you're running locally, then it's just localhost. uh Man, it's like super hot today here. Must be 40 degrees, but let's see. um okay, I'll get rid of this. Okay, so this is the Sequelize object. So the dialect I'm choosing MySQL, since we're on MySQL, and then I'm putting the connection information, and then the models is just searching for the dir name, right? So dir name is the folder, our root project folder, anything called .model.js, right? So if I just define here my model to be like user.model.ts, then it's gonna compile to .js, because always .ts becomes .js, and then it will know where to find the models by this here benchmark. Yeah, I'm not sure what benchmark is actually. So log query parameters is just to log out when you make a query, and then the login thing here is just let me see. Yeah, I think it's configuring the time of the logs, something like that. So you should set this to true if you want to see the actual SQL query, if you want to debug, right? But for now, it's not needed. So yeah, so I just set it up there nicely, and then okay, so so Sequelize TypeScript uses this thing called reflect metadata. So I should install this as well. So let me see if I have everything. Sequelize TypeScript. Okay, so I need to add the what's the name, the reflect metadata. Reflect metadata, and then let's see. Yeah, what else? So install MySQL, add the model index.ts, and yeah, generate it. This should work, I think. Let me just see if I need to. Oh, okay. So here I need to import actually the command, right? So I'm here exporting a sync models command, which doesn't need to have the string here. So this will sync to the database, right? So what I can do is, if I go back here to the index, I can just import. Um, I can just import here the what's the name, sync models, right? So if I just do sync models, okay, so import sync models, and after you connected, you sync models. So then what it's gonna do is it's gonna look uh, for all files uh, that that have a .model.js. So for example, this thing here. So this is another file. I'm just gonna copy here and then explain. So okay, so this should be the file for the user. I'll just copy it here. And then let's see. There's some things that I don't need here, so I don't need this. I don't need this. So table. Okay. So now I can do is I just remove a lot of things here because we're just at the start, right? So I think we probably just need the username, the email, the password, and I don't know if we need name, but yeah, just let's just leave name there. And then okay, so this is called a decorator. So a decorator is a thing that is useful for you have to type less stuff. So for example, here if I do string, username string, right? So because I use this decorator here, I don't need to type like data types, not string. So it will know automatically. At least it should work this way. But I'm not sure if I set up the Sequelize entirely correct. But let's see. So first thing when using decorators is you should allow it on the tsconfig, right? So there should be a thing here, decorators. Okay, so let's see. So experimental decorators, yeah, let's use that. And I don't know, emit decorator metadata true. And then let's see. Okay, that seems good. I'll see if it compiles this way. If it does, great. And then let's see if we can get it to run, right? Okay, so what we can do here also is like okay, so I built this folder now, right? So this is the build folder. So the build folder contains all my compiled JS files, okay? So if I want to build this again, I'll just gotta run like build again, right? But I can create a dev command here uh, that I can run tsc-w. So this is a flag. I think it's right. I think it just as long as you run this, it will keep compiling all your changes into the build files, right? So for example, I can get rid here of many of these things here. Let me see. Let me get rid, and then I can just run here now yarn dev. Okay, so it's compiling okay, so W is for watch mode. So it keeps watching your code and okay, found 0 errors, and then it keeps watching for file changes, right? So then if I just do this, okay, so any change I make now uh, will automatically compile, right? So for example, let's see if I just this is a example root blah blah blah, and then it compiles here, and then if I go here to the build and then roots and then user.js, this is an example root blah blah blah, right? It changes automatically. I don't have to build again. Okay, so I'll just get back to the start, and then let's see if it works. I could do here yarn start, and then let's see. Yeah, throw some errors here, and let's see. Okay, so you need to install the MySQL 2 package manually. I forgot about that. So because I have here in the source folder, I have uh, MySQL setup, right? Depending on what you use, if you use what's the name, Postgres SQL, it will ask you for a different driver. But since I'm using MySQL, it asks for uh, install MySQL 2 package manually. Okay, so I'll just install it. Yarn add MySQL 2, and then let's see. Let's wait a bit. Okay, installed, and then let's try again. Let's see if it works. It probably throws another error, but we will solve. Okay, and then let's see. Oh, actually it worked. So server started on port 3000. So it's and then it's synced your database, right? If you check here, it's synced the database. So this means that it took all the models and then it synced to to the database with the models. For example, this model I have a string, an email, and a password. So if, for example, I'll make some things here. If for example I don't have a database yet, okay, or if I choose the wrong name for the database, I can just, so for example, I could call this Grassify DB, right? And then let's see what happens. It will probably throw an error, and then I'll show you how to fix. Okay, so failed to sync the unknown database, Grassify database. So what you do now? So you can go to the workbench here, and then you have this tab here called schemas. So schemas is just another name for database. Okay, so when a schema is a database, and then you have here some database, blah blah blah. So the bold text one is the one that's selected. So I can just create here. There's this button here, create a new schema in the connector server. Okay, so just call this Grassify database and then apply. So it runs this code here, create schema and Grassify DB. I can just apply. Success. So I can find here a Grassify database. If I just double click here, I think. Okay, so it's now bold. So this is the selected database now. Okay. So when I run here again, it should work. So at first, let's see here. At first inside here you don't have any tables, okay, as you see. But then let's run, okay. Sync database, and then let's see if I just refresh this. So now there's a table called users with columns, ID, which is automatically generated, and the username, email, password, name, and then a couple other automatically generated rows. Okay, so if I just run select from users, I just run all the users that I have. For now I don't have any, but okay, so this sync, so this command here, sync models, if I just set, which I always like to do it in development, but if you're in production it could be dangerous, because this will automatically change your tables to match what you define in your model. So what this does is it takes your model and then converts it to a table, right? So you don't have to create the table, it does it automatically. That's why it's so nice to use Sequelize. So then, for example, if I change here, if I add something else here, if I do like a column, and then I add, for example, let's see, phone number, okay? Phone number, which is required, and then should be a string. If I just save this, and then I run it again, so because it's syncing the database, it's called this function here, sync models, and then it's called the sync. So the Sequelize.sync with the outer flag set to true. So if you set it to false, this doesn't happen. But when you're developing, you're in development, it's cool to just set it to true because it's just faster and easier. And then it should have changed my table if I just update here to have a phone number. You see, so this is really useful because your tables will always match your model, so you almost don't have to care anymore about the creating tables or altering tables. It will just you just change your model and then you're done, right? So that's pretty useful and makes development a lot faster. You just gotta be careful, because if, for example, if I came here and if I let's see, because this command it can be destructive, right? So that's the problem. So if you go here to the users, to the user model, and then I now remove, for example, the name. Okay, so for example, suppose you had all the names for your users there already in your database, and now someone removed here the the name, okay, from the model. So then when you run this again, it will actually remove data from your database, right? So that's the danger. Because then when I go back here, it won't have the name anymore. So all the people that filled their names, you will lose. Okay, you lose the data. So that's why you should be careful. But as long as you know what you're doing, it's fine. And then yeah, that should be it for today, I think. Um, I don't know if you guys have any questions. I'll just yeah, I think there's something here, right? Uh, yeah, if you want, you can ask something. Uh, let me see. Uh, so what we did today is we installed MySQL and then we set up Typescript on the project, and then yeah, we got our hands on the MySQL Workbench for Windows, and then we created like a user table, right? And from next class on, I think we'll create more stuff, and maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe we'll create a front end, right, on the next class. So it's either gonna be more backend, or we're gonna create the front end on the next class. Okay. So let's see what we can do for next Friday. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here and for following the class, and take care. Bye bye.